Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you one of the two new Tom Ford eye quads that I've purchased. This one is called Rose Prism, and I bought both of the quads in fact, but I'm just going to show you this one today and come back and show you Metallic Denim, which is the other new quad from Tom Ford. They're just up on the Tom Ford website here in the UK. I think I ordered mine on, where are we now, Wednesday. I think I ordered it on Sunday evening, and they're still there. It was delivered quite quickly. I haven't seen them appearing anywhere else, for example, on the Selfridges website yet, but they may be in store, I don't know. So you know that I love Tom Ford, and I pretty much automatically buy the quads now, although perhaps not so much in the bigger releases. This is just two, but the line is kind of churning out quite a lot of quads of recent years, and it may be that the quality is somewhat dipping, which is a shame because they are very expensive. £68 now. I can remember when they were about 58, and certainly early 60 mark, £62 for a long time, which is a lot for a lot of product. You get a reasonable amount of product. I've never, even with my very favourite ones, got anywhere near hitting pan yet, and some of them look barely touched, even though I have used them, and I do use them quite a bit, less so since we've been in lockdown, I have to say. So anyway, this is just about first impressions, having a quick look around my stash of Tom Ford only to see if there's anything similar, so that if you're on the wire, as it were, on the fence rather, about whether to buy or not, this might help you. There are loads of other well, not loads, there are a few other videos out there of people who've got them before we did here in the UK. We're always behind the US for Tom Ford, of course. So Rose Prism, it's by the looks of it, the wet and dry formula. Does it say that? No, it doesn't. I should have looked up on the website. It looks, from the appearance and feel in the pan. I have had a quick swatch before filming this, although I haven't tried them on the eye. Here's the colour story, which you can see in reasonable natural light. It is quite pale. You've got this pale gold, in fact, just a topper. Let's swatch it on the inside of the wrist. You can see there, that's literally just going to give you a wet look. So that we might mark down as the first kind of disadvantage of this palette if you don't love toppers. I won't say I hate them, but I don't use the toppers a lot, and certainly not to justify the number of them that we're getting in Tom Ford palettes now. And they often look very much the same, and that's kind of 1 out of 4 pans that you're not going to get a huge amount of use out of. So I think I would have preferred that to be a more opaque version of that colour, which is a very pretty kind of honey colour when you look at it in the pan, rather than the topper. I was more interested in this peach shade, which feels very nice, quite smooth, not too glittery. It's not matte, obviously. It's a satin with quite a nice sheen, and it's the very kind of pretty peach that makes me think of one of the early cream eyeshadows that Tom Ford did that I absolutely loved. The name of it escapes me. I will put in the description box below, in case any of you are aficionados from the past. You probably will know which one I'm thinking of. And it does make me think of some of the previous palettes, although it's not quite the same as the previous ones. But you can see it's showing up on my pale skin. I suspect it would show up actually quite well on much, much darker skin, or women of colour, as a much more startling shade. What it's not going to do is show up much on kind of medium toned skins. Then the colour pan that I was most interested in, this one, oops, sorry, I'm going to make you a bit seasick. This one here, this very pale, it looks kind of lilac in the pan. It's showing a bit lighter on my monitor, but looks just very pearlescent on the finger. But as you can see, it is not very pigmented. Definitely has that kind of faint lilac, but I'm asking myself how much that's going to show up on the eyelid. Let's just have a little go wet. Not much better, to be honest. So there's wet, there's dry. You might be able to pack a bit more colour out of it, wet than dry. And then finally, what I would term a light bronze rosewood colour. This feels very nice texture indeed, as the final colour. And that's lovely, very kind of mid-toned, much darker and more pigmented than any of the other shades. Probably going to be able to do something interesting with those two, I would have thought. But you can see overall that's a very, bear in mind these two are the same, very light palette. I'm kind of reserving judgment at the moment. I like the colour story. If it shows up as it does on my arm, then I'd be quite happy with this, because I quite like some subtle shades occasionally. I get more use out of them. I do like this pearlescent, and I do like this peach as well. But I wonder if it's going to show up less on the eyelids. I'll have to update you on that. What's similar? It made me think immediately of one of my favourites, actually, which is Virgin Orchid. A few years back, some of you will have it. Now, it's not the same. Plainly, you've got this much darker aubergine type brown. The honey colour here is not a topper. So let me just show you. Let's get the top off. By way of comparison, you've actually got, it looks much lighter actually. You've actually got a shadow you can use as a colour rather than just a topper. This is a kind of lilac-y taupe, but much taupier and much pinker. So they're not the same, but it's a kind of colour story that I like. And in turn, this Virgin Orchid is the kind of update of my all-time favourite Tom Ford palette, which is one of the very early ones, the first Wet and Dry, I believe, the range ever produced, called Enchanted, which I still have. Very similar colour story to Virgin Orchid. What else did I pick out? Lilac Dream I picked out of the lilacs that I've got. I've got a few lilac palettes, but nothing that actually is similar to that lilac colour down there. You can see here a much kind of pinkier shade. Now, I have used Lilac Dream, as you can see, a fair bit. Again, it's got one of these toppers that I don't use so much, that's silver, but it's a nice colour story. This is not a Wet and Dry. This is the powder formula, which is actually drying a bit. That's hardly showing up at all, but you can see the similarities there in that kind of lilac-y pink. It's more pink in Lilac Dream. And as I say, it's the powder formula, which doesn't age as well. African Violet, this is nothing like the consistency or opacity of this new one. But I pulled it out because you can kind of see some parallels in the story, but where it's done in much deeper way. You've got that kind of apricot-y rather than peachy orange, and a really vivid lilac with the two warm browns. So, of course, I'm not saying that this is the same palette or a dupe in any way. but you can see how it kind of works out when you go for a much stronger colour story in those tones. Sorry, I'm not doing too well with my camera today. First Frost, some of you will have. I picked out, because it's the same formulation, but I mean, this is a beautiful palette, and you've got a much, no topper here, a much more pigmented pink as opposed to lilac frosty one. And then the two browns with the cream. I think this is a beautiful palette. I have used it quite a bit. And another one from that same run was Soleil d'Hiver. And I picked this one because it has the peach. Well, really the peach and the gold. I thought there were real kind of similarities with these two. But if we just look at the apricot or peach colour, let me get the top off. Let's see. So there we've got that one. Let's just... So actually, they don't look that dissimilar. Very similar, actually. I'm surprised about that. That's not what I quite expected. That seems to look almost the same. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because I reckon if you're not so bothered about a topper and you're not so bothered about this very pale lilac, you're happy to have a more tonal combination that goes together, and you've got Soleil d'Hiver, which is this one, then I don't know, you might want to pass on Rose Prism. You won't have the rose, of course, if we're taking this as the rose. So that's what I pulled out. Again, I keep coming back to, it makes me think of Virgin Orchid, really. But I'll be interested to see how this one actually works out when I try to do some eye looks. Because Virgin Orchid is a great favourite, even though it's not very densely pigmented. I think it's a bit more pigmented than this. And of course it has that much cooler toned, darker transition shade than this kind of medium to warm toned. But it'll be interesting to see what I can do with these. So there's the first look at Rose Prism, and I'll be back to show you the other one of this release, which is Metallic Denim, very soon, I hope. Until then, bye for now. See you soon.